Terrific. Welcome, everybody. So we are going to be talking about Beyond the Scale tonight, about sustainable fat loss and methods that are simple but very detailed. And it will be pretty intense. If you haven't attended our medical lectures before, we like to give you a lot of data so that we absolutely make sure your time is well spent and you feel like it has been worth your time. Our website is nutritionconnectionbalance.com. And then we, of course, have an email and phone, and we have a texting phone if you need more information when we're done. You can also talk to the person that invited you because they often have a connection to us and they know more if you have more questions beyond also our office. So we appreciate that. If you don't know me, I'm Valerie Sayer. I'm a registered and licensed dietitian nutritionist. I have an advanced exercise medical specialty. I kept a pharmacy technician license for 20 years. I gave that up just a few years ago because I just never worked in a pharmacy again, but it allowed me to be a really great, have a specialty in women's hormones in particular. So really is pretty special. I also have a passion for exercise and always have. I've done a few natural bodybuilding shows, done 3 full marathons and many 5 and 10K races. And I really love empowering people with the right tools to change or achieve their physical body, their spiritual, or their functionality and metabolic changes. And then we have Kent. And Kent, you want to tell them about your background?
So I have a background in personal training in college and then just after college. And then currently I'm a certified nutrition coach. I have a background in psychology and a master's in cognition. And right now I'm in charge of a lot of the what we call clinic testing at NCB. So if you've done omegas, minerals, toxin testing, what else?
A lot, right?
A whole bunch of stuff. I'm the one who looks at it, evaluates it, and then recommends what therapies goes with what, basically.
Yeah. And I just, I was thrown off a little bit because someone wasn't muted. Please make sure you're muted because otherwise the recording is not going to be good. All right. Thank you, everybody. So we're glad to have you here tonight. So again, we will take questions at the end and off we go. So Ken.
All right. So it's not a fun picture. This webinar is not a quick fix or an extreme protocol. We are focusing on sustainable ways to lose fat. So basically, five areas that we're going to cover: why fat loss can be challenging, exercise, nutrition, health testing that we offer that supplements burning fat, as well as actual supplements that can help. So we are going to start with why fat loss can be challenging. And that is the question that everybody asks, and that's the question that everybody has trouble with. So I've broken this down into 5 basically explanations of why fat loss is challenging for most people. Number 1, homeostasis. Our body is naturally resistant to change, meaning that unless the stimulus that you're providing your body is great enough, your body will likely remain how it is. It wants to stay the same. Number 2, plateaus. As you lose weight, your body becomes more efficient at doing the same work as before, meaning burning the same energy as before. And as your body weight drops, your calorie needs drop as well. So that's why it's hard to say, here's an exact calorie amount, and that's it for life. Because as your body weight changes, your calorie needs adjust as well. Number 3, especially in America, we have a high availability of very palatable, calorie-dense foods. So we're thinking snacks, we're thinking fast food, drive-through, that type of thing. Number 4, this goes for pretty much everywhere in the world, sedentary lifestyle due to job and other requirements. Some is in your control, some is not. I'm going to give some examples of how you can manipulate this a little bit, even if you do have a very sedentary job requirement. And then number 5, this one is really interesting. So research has found that identity drives long-term behavior change, not habits. Meaning that if you said, okay, I'm going to have a habit to eat this every day, like eat vegetables every day. Willpower alone usually fails. People usually fall off the wagon after a couple of weeks. And an all or nothing approach also typically fails. So instead of changing habits, what we want to change is our identity. So instead of saying, I'm going to do this because it's healthy, you can say, I am a healthy person. So I'm going to do what a healthy person would do, which is eat this vegetable, for example. So if you identify as a healthy person, it will be easier to consistently do what a healthy person would do, meaning it must become a part of who you are. This helps you be more consistent, and consistency creates results. So that's just kind of like a brief overview of why this is such a challenge for a lot of people. And now we're going to get into the meat of things, starting with exercise, which is a personal passion of mine. And if you know Valerie, it's been a passion of hers for a very long time as well. I've broken this down into 3 main parts. So we've got walking, lifting, and HIIT training, 3 different ways of exercise that serve different purposes, and I'll go over each of those purposes individually. So walking, I view walking as an excellent tool for fat loss. You can build it into your day with minimal effort. You can attach it to something you're going to do anyways. So you can take the stairs. You can take the long way to the bathroom, depending on how well you can hold it. You can go for a walk at the airport. I do this all the time. If I'm early or if I have a delay, sometimes I've walked like 2 miles while waiting for my flight instead of just sitting there. Easy way to get steps in. You can park a little bit further from your office and walk further in the parking lot. You can pace back and forth on the phone. So these are just ways that you can build walking into your day without going out of your way and taking extra time. You get bonus points if you walk after each meal because walking helps with digestion. So an example would be a 10 to 15 minute walk after each meal. That would be really optimal. Minimum, we're looking at around 7,000 steps, which is about an hour per day, depending on your pace. It could be quicker, it could be slower, it depends on your pace. Minimum 7,000 steps a day. If your walking is around 0 right now, then you're not looking for the maximum all of a sudden, right? You're not shooting for all or nothing. You're going to set a starting point, and a good starting point would be 7,000. Ideally, we're looking at 10,000 or more steps per day, which depending on your pace is about an hour and a half. So walking is an excellent tool, and I think it's super underrated. It's something that most people can do no problem. Doesn't matter your pace, as long as you're moving, it's working. In addition to walking, we're going to talk about 2 types of intentional exercise. The first being strength training, which is a personal passion of mine, being a previous personal trainer. I want to make it clear that the goal of strength training is to build muscle. It is not to burn calories. We don't go to the gym and lift weights to burn calories. We go to the gym and lift weights to build muscle. Now, why is that? More muscle means you have a higher metabolism at rest. Muscle is a metabolic asset, meaning the more muscle you have on your body, the more calories you burn just sitting there. So it kind of does the work for you. It increases your metabolism by having more muscle. Generally speaking, you want to push yourself by lifting heavy, but gradually increasing the amount of weight you're doing or the amount of repetitions you're doing. And this depends on how advanced you are, how far along you are in your strength training journey. In my opinion, what I've seen work with most people the best is anywhere from 3 to 12 reps. But higher reps has also been shown in the literature to be effective in building muscle up to 30 reps. But remember, with more volume, like let's say 12 plus, if you're doing sets of 20, you're going to be pretty out of breath. So that at that point, the limiting factor starts to become your breathing, your cardiovascular system, and not your target muscle. So you have to kind of filter that in. If you're in excellent cardiovascular shape, then maybe higher reps would be good for you. Like maybe you could handle it super well. If you don't do as much cardio, then maybe lower reps would be better as far as building muscle.
And time efficiency, right?
And
Yeah.
time efficiency.
Right.
We had an issue with the car about an hour and a half ago. Unexpected. I still wanted to get to the gym. I went and I did 2 sets of everything as hard as I could. 20 minutes. and it still is very effective that way, at least in maintaining, if not giving me a little bit of stimulus for something. So there are ways to do it that are very time efficient. Progressive overload is sort of the name of the game when it comes to strength training. So what that means is you gradually change the intensity that you're working with over time. So this is either changing the load, which is the amount of weight that you're using, or you're changing the volume, which is how many reps you're doing. In a lot of cases, it's changing both. But this makes a lot of sense because if you never change what you're lifting, your body has no reason to adapt. So let's say you're shoulder pressing 20 pounds and you get really good at it. If you can do 20 pounds no problem, your body doesn't need the extra muscle. There's no stimulus for it. It can solve the task just fine. So it has no incentive to add muscle. I hope that makes sense. I tried to make that as relatable as possible. But basically, if you're not giving your body a stimulus, a reason to change, it won't. Plain and simple. Anything to add on that?
No, that's good. That is all excellent.
Cool.
Make sure you guys are muted. I heard someone again that is not muted. Please make sure you're muted out. Appreciate that.
So the third category of exercise that I'll talk about today is HIIT, which is high intensity interval training. This is short bursts of intense exercise followed by a short recovery, and then you repeat it. The goal of this type of training is to burn as many calories as you can in a short period of time. As far as bang for your buck, calories to time, this one is the biggest bang for your buck. It helps improve your cardiovascular endurance, and it has a huge impact on brain health. Cardio has a big impact on brain health. If you've ever done a HIIT class or any type of fitness class where your heart rate gets really high, if you've gone for a run, you've experienced a runner's high, that is an influx of neurochemicals and adrenaline that literally helps your brain function better. You feel better, you focus better, a whole bunch of things. However, HIIT training is not a replacement for strength training for muscle building. So I'm not going to say pick one of these three, walking, HIIT, or strength training, and just only do that. The best thing would be to do a little bit of everything. So an ideal training protocol would include all three.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I really recommend patients do this by the time they're 50, but really they should be doing it their entire life so that you don't have to do as much. And I think one thing that I was thinking about when you asked me about the previous slide is sometimes people say, well, I'm already getting heavier. You can't always go heavier and heavier, but that's why you want to change it up and have diversity. And of course, there's always new data coming out that we keep up to date on to help you make sure you do that, or a personal trainer. So again, really important. And the high intensity, again, isn't necessarily you have to go for a long run. You can do, again, intervals with running 1 minute or cycling or jump roping, and then walk or go down for a minute, catch your breath, go back up. So it's something you can do in a very short period of time, and it's incredibly effective for cardiovascular and as well as a lot of other data now. So especially visceral fat, which is the fat around the organs. So high intensity exercise is really important.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. If you are new to strength training, I would highly recommend getting a personal trainer.
Yeah, it really is the best.
Not just because I'm biased, because I have experience in personal training, but getting your, how do I say this? Getting your feet on the ground and getting comfortable in the gym, knowing what does what, and learning where to feel what exercise is invaluable if you have no experience already with that. So getting a personal trainer, if you are just starting out, really good idea. Related to your training and to your life, we all love stress, don't we? All stress goes in the same cup. Now, what does this mean? I love this saying. I think this is really, really useful in everything, including exercise. Your body doesn't differentiate between types of stress. Stress is stress. You get physical stress from your training and your workouts. You get mental and emotional stress from your work and the rest of your life. You get stress from poor sleep. your body is stressed from eating poorly if it's bad quality, or if you just don't eat enough. You have stress if you have hormonal imbalances and toxins. And all of this stress, think of it like when you're filling a glass. If I were to be pouring water into this glass, the water is the stress from all these different sources. At some point, it could be up to here and about to overflow. So when your stress cup overflows, the little things in your life bother you more, and that can push you over the edge.
Please remember to mute yourself. Go ahead. If you want to put it up, I can look while you're.
Sure, yeah.
Thanks.
No, I got it.
Okay.
So when your stress cup overflows, it affects your ability to perform in your workouts. It affects your ability to recover from them. It reduces your metabolism, meaning your body doesn't need as many calories, and it throws off your cortisol rhythm. So why am I saying this? If you're extremely stressed at work, if you're extremely stressed in your relationship, whatever it may be, you haven't been sleeping much, if you have like the infinity stones of stress, all 5 of these things going on at the same time, your life factors need to be taken into context. Maybe going all out at the gym that day is not a good idea. Instead, a nice, easy hour-long walk in nature, preferably, would be a better idea. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, or you can do also sometimes some type of gentle stretching or band work or something like that, so that again you're still moving, because you need that for that support in the brain and that continued metabolic effect, so that stress can be managed. But sometimes I think we push ourselves too much when we've got a lot of that cup overflowing. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Yeah, and it's not to say that every time you feel stressed, you just
Yeah.
get to skip a workout.
Yeah, exactly.
But life factors need to be taken into account, especially extreme circumstances.
Yeah.
Next, the fun part. We're going to talk about nutrition. Look at that. Look at that delicious broccoli right there. We're going to go over the basics of energy, calories, tracking, macronutrients, diet timing and fasting, and the trends that you typically see on social media. So we're going to start with the basics of energy. Your total daily energy expenditure. This is TDEE. You don't really need to remember the acronym. I'm going to explain it more like your body is a car. Your TDEE is how much fuel your body or your car burns in a day. Everyone's tank size is different. Some people naturally burn more gas per day. Some people naturally burn less gas per day. It's not inherently good or bad, it's just reality. So this is why some people can eat a whole bunch and some people can eat the same thing and see different results. So that is just genetically or metabolically different based on person to person. Overfilling versus underfilling your tank. If you eat more than your tank uses, your fuel will spill over, which will result in fat gain. If you eat less than your tank uses, your fuel will run low and you will likely experience some sort of fat loss. The goal is to slightly underfill your tank. You don't want to drain your tank. This is super important. If you are extreme dieting, meaning your caloric needs are here, and instead of being just under, you're way down here, extreme dieting will shrink your tank, meaning your metabolism will drop. Your energy will drop. The amount of movement you can do will drop because you have less energy. Eating way too little is a great way to slow and stall fat loss and to actually lose muscle mass too. So that's why we have to be really specific and not go to one extreme or the other. Neat. This is a pretty neat topic. Nice one, me. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Think about this as how much you drive every day. NEAT is movement outside of the gym, stuff that's incorporated. I already kind of went over this a little bit, how you can incorporate more walking into your day. This stuff includes chores, errands, stuff you do in daily life anyways that is movement. Cleaning, doing the dishes, laundry, grocery shopping. More movement more often means you will likely have a bigger fuel tank or a higher metabolism. Less movement or being more sedentary likely means that you will have a smaller fuel tank and lower caloric needs. So, some expectations for fat loss. Expectation 1, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. And that's not a challenge. Don't try to prove me wrong there. For example, 300-calorie cup of coffee, if it's like a latte or something. On average, that would be 60 minutes of walking or 30 minutes of HIIT training to burn off 300 calories. So if you think about how long it takes you to drink that latte and how long it takes you to burn the same amount of calories, if that latte is putting you over your threshold for calories for the day, it's really not worth it as far as time goes. You're going to be spending a lot more time getting those calories back than you did consuming them. Expectation number 2, fat loss is not linear. You can be losing weight, and then all of a sudden, this happens to a lot of people. All of a sudden, the same thing that was working before stops working, and everybody freaks out. Your body is adapting. Your weight is changing. And remember, as your body adapts, your weight changes, your calorie needs also change. So if your body is getting lighter, your calorie needs likely will go down. If your body is getting heavier, your calorie needs likely will go up. Expectation number 3, and this is a general rule of thumb that Valerie has instilled in me. 80% clean, I almost said it the other way around. 80% clean, 20% fun when it comes to food. You don't have to be perfect, but consistency is key. And also, weekends count. You can undo an entire week's worth of effort of being in the right amount of calories per day in a single evening at the bar. If you're getting nachos and watching football and go Bears, by the way, and having beers and all these things. Weekends count. Every day counts. The calories will add up. Yeah. So this is one of those slides that I said you're going to want to take a screenshot of this or a photo with your camera. Estimating your calorie needs. So this is a general equation to what we're going to call this an educated guess of what your calorie needs are. Step 1, finding your basal metabolic rate, which is how much your body needs to stay exactly where it is. For a male, it's this long formula here. For a female, it's this long formula here.
And we are going to give you easier and other options, so just hang in there.
Yeah. So this is the old school way of doing things, right? So you'll calculate this. If I put in my weight in kilos, which is like 84, my height in centimeters, 187, my age in years, 29, then I will end up at around 1,800 calories for my body just to exist. That does not include exercise. That doesn't include anything else. This gives us the number of calories estimated that it takes your body just to exist, just to live. Basic function for your heart to work, for your lungs to work, for your organs to work, that type of thing. Using this number, we can adjust it based on your activity level. So, and again, this is a general estimation. Based on your activity level, we've got lightly active, moderately active, very active, or super active. You will multiply your BMR by a certain number. So if I am very active, I exercise or go to the gym 6 to 7 days a week, I'll multiply my number by 1.725, which puts me at around 3,200 calories per day. So using these formulas, you can get what I like to call a starting point. You can get a rough estimation, still an educated guess, but a rough estimation of where your calorie needs lie currently. So everybody make sure you take a picture of that. So what do you do with that number?
Oh, okay. Do we want to talk about the other ways? Or is
No, I'll get to
that.
that.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
So what we do with that, okay, so you have that number. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is tracking your calories. For that, you're going to need a tracking app. There's a couple of good ones that are free. MyFitnessPal, LifeSum, MacroFactor are a couple of good ones. You're going to need a food scale, and you're going to need a body weight scale. What you're going to do is track your calorie intake for 2 weeks using that estimated calorie number from the last slide. Meaning for 2 weeks, you're going to try to be almost right on the dot of that number every single day. On day 1, you're going to weigh yourself first thing in the morning before you eat, and you're going to write that down. On day 14, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to weigh yourself first thing in the morning before you eat, and you're going to write that number down. And we're going to compare the change in weight with the average calories per day, and using that, you can calculate the average calories your body needs. With that in mind, depending if your goal is weight loss or weight gain, the slower you go, the better long-term you're going to be. So 250 calories, let's say your number was like 3,200 calories per day. That's around what mine is. If I deficit 250 calories per day, that means in theory, I should lose about a half pound per week. If I surplus 250 calories a day, that means I'm eating 3,450 per day. I'll gain half a pound per week. 500 calorie per day deficit or surplus, you will gain or lose about a pound of body weight per week. So the slower the better, meaning if you go slower with your fat loss or with your fat gain or weight gain, which usually accompanies, the goal is to gain muscle in that case, what's going to happen is you will, if you're losing weight, you will lose more fat and maintain your muscle better. If you lose weight too fast, a lot of it is going to be muscle wasting. And muscle is a metabolic asset. It helps you function in everyday life, so we don't want that. If you're going the other way, if your goal is to put on some size, you're still going to want to go slow. 250 calories is a great starting point because that way you're going to be putting on very small increments each week instead of just putting on more fat than muscle, which kind of defeats the purpose.
I agree. Yep.
Anything to add to that?
Nope. I agree with everything.
Cool. So that gets us to 2026. The new age of technology is here. An alternative to this strategy, we have partnered with DexaFit, which has locations all over the US. DexaFit has an RMR test. This is a resting metabolic rate test. An RMR and BMR are very comparable. You get a 20% off code with using Valerie25. What this test does is it gives you an extremely precise estimate based on your breathing. You sit there with a tube on your face for, what was it, 10 minutes?
Yeah, about 10 minutes. Yeah.
About 10 minutes. It's very precise, and it tells you how many calories your body burns just to exist. It's very precise. It skips the guesswork. You don't need to do that 2 weeks of testing afterward to sort of trial and error it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we really recommend using the DexaFit if you can. If you want to do the old school way, or if you just need an entry point, that's also a good option.
Yeah. And one other entry point, if you're not good with calculations, that Kent and I were talking about earlier today, that still works because I've worked with so many patients and people also, is if you know your body fat level, you could take your lean mass. But if you don't know that, let's say that I'm 180 pounds and I want to be 130. I could take 130, put a 0, and my resting metabolic rate start around 1,300, and then with activity, just multiply it times 1.3 to 1.5. So that's another way. If you have no clue, you're not good at calculations, you don't want to go get your actual rate tested to be exact. And then what you want to still do, though, is what Kent talked about there, was then you want to track for 2 weeks, because if you lose, then you know, and your goal isn't to lose, you might need to add more calories, or the other way around. If you didn't lose, then you know you've got to go down.
Yep.
So those are a few other easy ways that don't require hard math or a test if you don't want to. Because we know that people want to know, like, well, how many calories do you eat? People have no idea. So take what your goal weight is. Okay, so that's just another way. And then, of course, if you're exercising at least 3 times a week, just times 1.3 to 1.5. All right, and you don't want to go under your metabolic rate, because you can't get enough nutrition in for your muscle or tissue. And like Kent said, you'll just lose muscle, you lose bone, you lose tissue, and you lose water. So you don't want to lose those things. Those are precious, especially at every age these days, because now we have young people that have osteopenia, osteoporosis, and they have high body fat and visceral fat around their organs, even though they can even be underweight. So it's really scary. And that's why we have so many people that are young that might look a certain way, but are not healthy.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of different ways to figure that out. Okay.
And that is actually something that we'll cover shortly.
Okay.
That begs the question, so all that math aside, we're getting away from the math here.
Yeah.
We're going to simplify things. What should I eat? That's a super simple question, isn't it? This is the new dietary guidelines for Americans. It looks a lot better than the last pyramid, I'll say that.
Yeah.
Diet optimization as far as macronutrients go. For most people, the Mediterranean diet is generally the best. We're looking at around 1 gram per pound of lean protein. We're looking at healthy fats, and we're looking at carbs that are mostly fibrous. So some examples of that, and you can also take a screenshot of this. The next slide will have even more specific details. Examples of lean protein: turkey bacon, egg whites, skinless chicken breast. The skin on chicken breast is fat, by the way, so skinless chicken breast. Ground turkey breast. Extra firm tofu, which is made of soy. Tempeh is also soy, and seitan is wheat gluten if you want some vegan options. Examples of healthy fats: we've got avocados, extra virgin olive oil, wild-caught salmon, variety of nuts, walnuts, almonds, pistachios, macadamia nuts. Examples of fibrous carbs: organic oats, sweet potatoes with the skin, lentils and beans, and pretty much all vegetables. I made a note here at the bottom. The silent killers are juice and soda. These are empty carbs, meaning they have zero nutrition. They are easily digestible because it's basically just you're drinking pure sugar. It will spike your insulin, it can make you more tired, and it can cause health problems long term. And I'll get to an exception of where this sort of easily digestible carbs can actually be useful. But in general, juice and soda are a no-go for pretty much everybody. This one you might want to take a screenshot of because it's got some very specific, how do I even say this? Very specific measurements, very specific calorie amounts. A chicken breast, 3.5 ounces cooked, is about 165 calories. 1 cup of broccoli cooked is about 55 calories. An apple, medium. Now, what does medium mean? That's where a food scale comes into play, where if you want to get even more specific, you would weigh the apple, and then you can take the apple by grams and get an exact calorie amount instead of estimating what a medium apple is. So take a picture of this if you'd like some options. A lot of good options. Also, sweets and snacks and beverages. This is stuff that you still got to be tracking, even though it tastes awesome and might make you feel really good. But you got to track it. Everything counts. When it comes to diet structure and timing, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, especially for women. Now, why is that? You have basically been fasting for if you're a college student, maybe like 12 hours. You've basically been fasting all night. You don't eat while you sleep. So you're fasted. We want breakfast to be mainly lean proteins and healthy fats. In the other meals of the day, a balance of lean proteins, healthy fats, and fibrous carbs is usually the way to go. Protein and fiber are the two things that are going to help keep you full for the longest amount of time. Simple carbs. This goes back to the juice and soda thing. Simple carbs are carbs that are quickly digested. They're quickly into your bloodstream. Usually sugars, but also like white rice, bread, and pasta. These can be used strategically before or after a workout as fuel. So if we're thinking of your body as a car and you're about to do a race, you need fuel. These simple carbs are really useful before or after a workout because it can help you push harder in the gym and it can help you recover your glycogen stores quicker afterward. So simple carbs, usually like for every meal, not a good idea, But if you're using them strategically like this, they really actually do have a place.
Yeah.
As far as fasting goes, remember you've been fasting all night. So we don't usually recommend fasting in the morning. You've already been fasting for 8 to 12 hours by sleeping. The right breakfast regulates your cortisol rhythm. It helps stabilize your blood sugar. It helps support your hormones, especially for women, and it helps give you better energy for the day. So generally, if you want to do some type of fasting, Valerie's rule of thumb is to stop eating by around 6 p.m. For some people like her, it works. For some people like me, there's not a chance that's going to happen.
Yep.
At the very least, stop eating around an hour or more before bed. Now, why is that? Eating spikes your insulin, which spikes cortisol and can reduce your sleep quality. So if you can keep your eating at least an hour before bed or more, you will actually have improved sleep quality, which just helps everything in your life.
But I'm going to add one thing. If you're over 50, I don't recommend 2 to 3 hours before bed because of reflux and other digestive issues that actually occur. So, and that is one of the most common things that happen when we age is reflux, heartburn, digestive issues at bedtime, and that's what we don't want because that will interfere with sleep, and then it also causes all sorts of other things.
Trends and facts. This is the stuff that you're going to see on social media, and I think there's a lot of stuff marketed as truth because it's trendy. But this is the facts about it. If it fits your macros, this is more of like a meathead bro discussion comment. As long as I eat X amount of calories, it doesn't matter where it's from. That is, most of you know that's not true.
Yeah.
The quality of your food really matters. And it especially matters because it affects your internal fat, the fat that you can't see. This is the visceral fat between your organs that is more dangerous than the fat that you actually can see. Visceral fat is why someone can look healthy, but actually internally be unhealthy. This is what we call skinny fat. Keto diet is another big trend. Keto diet means you're eating little to no carbohydrates. And I want you to take a look at the word carbohydrates for me here. Carbohydrates hold water. So when people go on keto and lose a ton of weight right away, it's water weight. It's not that they're losing a bunch of fat magically all of a sudden. It's not that keto is the greatest thing in the world. They are losing a ton of water weight because their carbohydrates don't hold it anymore because they don't have enough carbohydrates. Meaning, for most people, keto is not a long-term solution. It's not sustainable. Your brain's main form of energy is carbohydrates, and you need carbs to fuel strength training. However, context matters. For some people, a very low or no carb diet actually can be beneficial if you have insulin resistance or diabetes or experience seizures. Very low carbs has been shown to be helpful.
And if we have people that have some of those particular issues, other than seizures, I recommend, a 26 to 130 gram range of carbs. And the reason that is because that's what they show is considered low carb for most people, because the average American eats 300 grams of carbs per day or more. And that seems to help, but it also helps you with, like what Ken said, so you have continuous energy. Mm-hmm. And that's really important because, again, we're talking about you eat for your whole life. You need to exercise your whole life. You're in a physical body your whole life. So there's things that we're always going to have to do. So you don't, if I just told you you could never, ever eat pizza again ever, or you could never do certain things, you probably aren't going to do it long term.
Yeah. And I have a recent example of someone I know who recently changed their diet, and then they're also recently changing their exercise, and they're exhausted all the time.
Yeah.
And that's a big sign that they're just not eating enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you also have to take into account how you feel.
Yeah. Very important.
And now Valerie will cover some clinical considerations in weight loss management.
All right. Thanks, Kent. Okay. So there are some different things that sometimes if you feel really stuck and you're doing these things and they're not helping, then there are some tests you can do you may or may not know about at our office. And again, it's just hard because we never have time to talk about everything. But specifically for fat loss, we have a genetic test called SLIM, and you just take a cheek swab, and it's 48 markers for weight, macronutrient, metabolism. Like if you burn protein, carbs, and fat the same, then we know we don't have to manipulate that as much other than watching the calories and so on. But like someone like myself, I burn protein more efficiently. So again, when I already want a higher protein diet, if I stick to a higher protein diet and minimal or lower end 26 to 130 gram of carbs and good fats, I have a better result. And that can be shown again. The other thing is when we talked about the resting metabolic rate, the DEXA-Fit can also do your body fat, visceral fat, and it doesn't just tell you one area, it tells you every area, left and right bicep, left and right knee, left and right quadricep. It's extremely helpful to see where things are. You know, people can look at themselves and know if they're more pear-shaped, apple-shaped, but if you're normal weight or older than 50, you don't know if you have visceral fat. And it's a really shocking test for some people that think they're doing really well. But that genetic test is really helpful. A genetic test means you only have to do it once. You never have to do it again. So it's really helpful if you're stuck or you want to know more about what exercise is best for your metabolic and genetic type. And again, what type of macronutrients are beneficial, maybe more or less for you versus someone else. We know that when we test hormones, they directly influence weight also. And there's more and more data on this. I think some of the data that's really fascinating is when you hear about exercise and you really learn exercise physiology, when you are exercising high intensity or strength training, or let's say you're walking, but you're walking fast, or you're doing hills, or you're doing a weighted jacket vest, one of the things that happens is your blood pressure goes up, cortisol goes up, all these things, insulin goes up, but it's temporary. That's different than like what Kent talked about is when your cup is over full. And so when we look, saliva can look at DHA and cortisol that really directly affect how fat is contained or lost easier. There is also, when you look at the saliva, we know testosterone influences lean body mass, and it's something that we see a lot of changes in, and then also hormonal influence. Too high of estrogen or estradiol, or too low of estradiol, the same thing. And we'll talk about hormones a little bit at the end because I'm going to do a hormone clinic because the FDA changed their ruling in November 2025 and said not only are hormones good for you, but they actually are good for prevention. So they got it wrong 20 years ago. And if you know me, I've always tested and used hormones, bioidentical or natural hormones to help balance people. So it's nice to see that the FDA and as well as even the food guide pyramid is starting to catch up to what you see clinically when you work with thousands of patients and have results. That's an easy test, and you do it by saliva, and that really shows us the last 4 to 12 months of different types of stressors and influences that could be affecting your metabolism if you're having trouble. Then there's the sleep balance, and that one, what's a little bit different about that one is if you know you've had a lot of chronic stress or your cup's been full for a while, or it's been short term and you're really seeing changes, like you feel like your stress is over, but you're not seeing changes. This one in particular looks at what's in the tissues and in between the cells 4 times for free cortisol. So sometimes we'll see other peaks that are affecting your metabolism and weight that we won't see in a saliva test. So often when someone does it the first time, I really like them to do the male or the female hormone clinic that has both saliva and urine. So we don't miss what's been going on the last 12 weeks and up to the last year. So that sometimes you can say, no, my stress was 6 months ago, but in your tissues, things are showing something different. So those are some of the really helpful tests when we're talking about fat loss. Other helpful markers for fat loss is when we do a very high-end metabolic test. We know that hormones influence cholesterol and different types of particles can also affect weight and body fat. And it certainly affects your risk of heart disease. When we do that particular test, there's 2 other markers in there that are really helpful called adiponectin and leptin. And they are hormones and again are made of protein. All steroids are made of protein. All neurotransmitters are made of protein. So you can see why we've always been pro-protein. It's not just when we're looking at, bodybuilders and the old days that they had it figured out. It's because of metabolic issues and because of what our cells and so many different hormones are made of. They're made of protein. And as we get older, our ability to utilize those go down. So you need more protein. And what people do as they get older, they eat more and more carbs, more alcohol, and less protein. And that's why they have more issues. Even when they're smart, when they're exercising, they have to change their diet. You have to get more protein. So adiponectin and leptin are really helpful for regulating metabolism, appetite, and so on, and signals different things that help burn fat and carbs. That's part of that cardiometabolic test. And there is also another test that is called a metabolomic test, that if you know you have high insulin or blood sugar concerns, or if you're a female and during pregnancy you had preeclampsia, high blood pressure or high blood sugar during pregnancy, you have a 50% increase more risk of having those as you get older. Then you might want to even do the metabolic one, because it'll look at all the different blood sugar and the things that regulate things that have to do with body fat in particular. So if you're stuck, those can be very helpful. If you want to do a baseline, then the CMP, where you're looking at the fasting lipids, the highly sensitive CRP, hemoglobin A1C, and insulin are wonderful ways to start, because I could talk about those for 8 hours straight and how they not just impact weight, but how you feel, every one of the top 10 diseases, as well as brain health and everything else that most people are certainly concerned about when they get older. Now, if you didn't hear my interview with a lovely Yvonne, who does interviews all over the world, she's in her 80s now and been doing interviews forever. We talked a lot. This is one of the things she asked me to talk about. So I decided to put it in here because, we hear a lot about the GLP-1s and so on, and people really don't always still understand what they do. In fact, I was just talking to a nurse that didn't even know what it did. And so they're just giving it, but she's like, yeah, I don't know, it just works. I'm like, well, do you know what it does? She goes, no. So basically, it's important if you ever consider these for 3 or 4 different reasons. First, let's make sure you know what they are. They slow your stomach emptying so you feel full longer and have better satiety. And they do help with blood sugar regulation, high or low. It's a very interesting substance. We have this naturally in our gut, but it goes down with age. And some people genetically definitely have a propensity for having some of these hormones and peptides that are lower. And again, a peptide is a protein. You're going to hear amino acids, peptide, proteins, all proteins. So different forms of GLP prescription medication, and there are bioidentical, or I shouldn't say bioidentical. It's really more that they can be made from a compounding pharmacy. But the ones that most people know about are Ozempic and Wegovy. Those are semi-glutides. And then Mounjaro and then Zepbound are tertrepasides. They actually work like a GLP with the same emptying, but those Mounjaro and Zepbound have something that also works on incretin. And incretin is a natural hormone that's released in your gut when you eat and increases insulin at first, but then how it regulates your appetite, weight loss, glucose and hemoglobin A1C, and even body fat can be very helpful. Those are self-injections you give typically somewhere in your abdominal wall. There's a few other places you can give it. We won't get into that today. And usually it's between 2.5 and 15 milligrams. If you decide to do these things, it's super important that you know what they do, what the risks are, and what lifestyle things you have to even do better than what we're talking about. And the reason is that some of the side effects that happen, even with small doses, and so really you want to work with a good practitioner if you're going to decide to do these, that are monitoring your symptoms, start lower, and then see if you need more. And it isn't, I know we hear about these things where people lose 30 pounds in 30 days and 60 pounds in 30 days. Again, I haven't seen any of those people keep it off. So again, you want to do it slowly. So smaller amounts of the GLPs are smarter. Make sure that your digestive system is adjusting. And then also that you're not having fatigue, dizziness, passing out, vomiting, dehydration. And there is some risk of gallstones, constipation, metabolic, like a metallic taste in your mouth, hair loss, too low of blood sugar, thyroid, pancreatitis, thyroid, different conditions, kidney, bone, and muscle loss. So your doctor should be monitoring your blood work and these often, not once a year. They should be at least every 3 to 4 months when you're on a GLP of any kind, and whether it's a small or large dose. But here's the thing that's important is that when you're on a GLP, you have to do even better than what Kent just went over. You've got to strength train at least 3 times a week, 20 to 60 minutes. You've got to get 30 to 50 grams of lean protein in 3 to 4 meals per day or more, depending on your size and needs. You need 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day, which we try to do through food, as well as there's a really good fiber GLP support we have in the office. It's 11 grams per scoop. We don't often tell people to start with 11 grams. We'll say use half a scoop in a smoothie or in your coffee or in your, your oats, what have you, and then work up to it. But then you want to be tracking your fiber on that food, Fitness Pal or any of those apps that Kent talked about, so that you make sure your digestive system is eliminating properly. Because when you slow digestion, sometimes you can have severe constipation, and that is not a good thing for toxins, long-term health, and metabolic health. And then we definitely recommend you always test your essential fatty acids, your minerals, and your B12. You want to make sure you stay hydrated, and you want to do pre and probiotics. So again, those things that you heard, we gave you different ranges, that those are even more. And so it's super important that if you're going to do these, and people say, no, all my friends are doing it and they're not doing these things. Well, unfortunately, even in my patients, what we have seen, let me go back, is that I have seen every person that hasn't done this, every single one. I don't care which one they're on, if they're on even low doses or high dose, even no matter how they look, have gone to full osteoporosis, which means a risk of a fracture. They have had some other GI issues that haven't gone away, and they've also lost a ton of muscle. So again, if you don't plan to be on these your entire life, you want to, and I'm not against them, just so you know. I think they are life-changing for some people, but we want to make sure that you're doing the lifetime things that we just talked about in addition to them. That way, when you wean off, you maintain it. And like Kent said, when you get down to that leaner mass and your metabolic rate goes down, if you have more muscle, you're able to get off them and not have weight gain back. So, but people that haven't, even my patients, which we consider our patients pretty high level, they're much more educated, they're very proactive, they do preventative testing, they're on foundational supplements, they do not get the fiber, the protein, and the strength training. Every single one have developed some very serious side effects after they've gotten off it, or even when they're still on it. So the ones that have done well have done these things religiously, and they have done fantastic, especially some people that are 20 to 60 pounds overweight, and they just have a hard time getting it off. But it isn't, you do the injection instead of the lifestyle. So please take that very seriously. If you don't want to do GLP, there's 4 things that are in our office that do work really well and have a lot of data. One is CaloCurb. I talked about this in the interview with Yvonne because I actually went on this about a few years ago when we were in New Zealand and Australia, because I'd heard about it and I couldn't get it here. And New Zealand did a whole study on CaloCurb. We'll talk about it in a minute. Then and it works similar to a GLP on appetite, satiety without the side effects. Burn works more if it's more metabolism issues. And then fiber, again, fiber helps with all of those things. Regardless, you want to be getting 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day, not just for satiety and weight loss and all of that, but for toxins, for GI health, lower risk of colon cancer. We can go on and on. Creatine is another one, and then again, we talked about the fiber. So a little bit more detail. So CaloCurb is a particular compound in a hops flour, and it's in a capsule, and it was the government actually commissioned the study to be done. So it's a very big study, and they show that GLP goes up, and again, it goes up quite a bit, and also helps reduce calories. And I try to give you as much as data I could, because people say, well, how much compared to the GLP? It's pretty darn good. I mean, for an over-the-counter 18% reduction in calories, where the medications are 20 to 40, depending on what dose, and some people are on 2 with a lot of side effects, it's pretty dramatic. It's not 1 or 2%. So it's pretty comparable, I have to say. A 30% reduction in hunger, 40% reduction in cravings, and there's a specific way to take it. Basically, what you want to know is that by day 5 or 6, you want to be taking 1 capsule twice a day. And here's the thing, I always like to talk about what are the good or bad things, because there's always ups and downsides of everything. The only negative is that you really have to try to remember to take it about an hour before a meal with 8 ounces of water. So if you are someone that is not very motivated or compliant, may not be very good, because you do need to take it before you eat. I do have some patients that have had success taking it 30 minutes before, and they seem to remember that better. Or if they forget, they'll take it, wait 30 minutes, and then just delay their lunch or dinner. I say have it twice a day before your biggest meals, whatever those are for you during those days. There is some mild GI distress in some of the data. I have not seen it. But again, the reason is because how I do it is I like to wean people up on it. So I think that's one of the reasons. So it's just like the GLP. Most people have pretty big side effects, even on low doses, and they start tolerating it. So that's one that's good to know about, that's similar to a GLP. The burn works more on metabolic things. It makes your metabolic agency work a little bit more efficient. So it works on the insulin, the hemoglobin A1C, blood pressure, lipid sizes, and body fat. And about 6% body fat loss in 8 weeks. Now, you don't take it and eat more. We've had people do that. I'm like, oh my gosh. And when I looked at their food diary, I'm like, you ate more. That's why you didn't lose weight. So you still have to make sure you eat the same or less and take it. But it works more if you have more metabolic issues and with metabolism. And again, if you don't know that and you haven't had an MMR, it's hard to know which one to take. But you could always try one or the other. Works in about 60% of people. And again, you can take it. I usually tell people, try to take it 2 months minimum straight. And then you can take it long term. Both of these are safe longer term. Just like the GLPs. I mean, some of the GLPs have been used for 20 years in diabetics. So again, if you do things correctly and you do the lifestyle, I do think they can be helpful. Creatine is something Kent and I are both very passionate about, and I have added it to my bone density handout this year because there's over 600 studies showing effectiveness and safety. And I know in a lot of circles in the old days, it was really berated. None of it was true. I've always been a proponent. I have taken it for years. And I increased my dose from 5 to 10 grams a year ago because there's more studies now showing changes, especially at all ages, in cognitive and sleep and mental health. Really interesting. And they're even showing some changes in people that already have beginning Alzheimer's, dementia, and so on. So pretty amazing. So we have the #1 creatine monohydrate in our office that is a non-flavored powder that is got the NSF standard. There's a way for me to get one other one that costs maybe $3 less over 3 months, but it doesn't have the NSF. And I just really like to make sure that when someone is going to take something like, I'll take it the rest of my life, that I know we are getting the cleanest source that they've used with professional athletes. So I feel really confident about that. And creatine is not that expensive. So if you've never used it, I don't care who you are, I recommend you start with 5 grams for the first month or the first 1 to 2 weeks, and then go to 10 if you are over 50, if you have bone concerns, cognitive concerns, mental health concerns, strength training. It's absolutely one of the things where for a whole year, actually a year and a half, I did some extreme things with monitoring everything. And I changed my body fat and my visceral fat to almost 0 with my visceral fat over the last year and a half. And I got back to amount of muscle and body fat that I had at my first bodybuilding show at, oh my gosh, I was 29.
Back when TV was in black and white.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, exactly. I'll be 60 this year if you need to know that. But anyways, transparency is important, right? So also very effective with time changes and travel adjustments. And I travel a lot, so it's very, very helpful. So only downside is GI distress. And there are some people that are non-responders to muscle, not necessarily the cognitive. And creatine is good for most people. What we say is it does not, there is no studies out of over 600 that show kidney damage. However, if you have pre-existing kidney dysfunction, then you should not take it. And we're talking diagnosed kidney dysfunction. So we're not talking you have a little high creatine or a little high BUN. We're talking about kidney dysfunction. Okay. And if you say, I don't know if I have kidney dysfunction, then you do not have it. because you'd be on dialysis or seeing a specialist every year for sure. Okay, so that's important. If you have serious mineral conditions, I only have 2 patients out of 30 years that have known mineral issues, and I would never give them to them because their minerals get high and low super easily because they have some adrenal issues and severe thyroid issues. That's the only other person in my practice that I wouldn't recommend creatine for. Is there any other thoughts on creatine? Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I mean, a lot of new data.
Yeah, some of the new data is actually on it supporting mental health.
Yeah.
And that kind of relates to, I would suggest mixing it in a smoothie or taking it with food.
Yes.
If you take it, some research has shown if you take it on an empty stomach, it can cause a spike in different neurotransmitters, which has actually given people some symptoms of anxiety.
Okay, that's good to know. So I didn't know that.
So mixing it with a smoothie or having it with food is the way to go.
Yeah, and I've always done with mine as a smoothie, so I've never even thought about it. So that's good to know. So again, we try to stay up on all of the science. See this science study, not what it says on Instagram. Okay, unless you're watching someone that has credibility. And showing you resources. So please be careful, but really a lot of data on, again, muscle strength, water getting into the muscle, which is healthier, and then some of the new cognitive and tissue changes with bone and sleep and so on are really impressive. So very, very exciting. All right. Fiber, as we talked about, because it supports satiety, regulates appetite, it helps with detoxification, and again, directly changes some of the gut microbiome that regulates these GLP and PYY, which are, again, peptides that modulate satiety, body fat, insulin, all these things. The one particular fiber GL support that I was really excited about this year and brought in was because it's got 3 species of specific ketones that they show help support GLP naturally when we are at any age, and especially as we get older. And it's really great because it's 11 grams of fiber per scoop. And again, a lot of fiber causes a lot of people digestive issues. So, I usually say start with half for a day or 2 or up to a week or 2. I'm not sensitive to it, so I always use 1 full scoop. So, and then we do have another one for some people that have I call it a really sensitive GI system. We have one called Fiber Lean and Protect. That's a really small scoop, but it's only 3 grams of fiber. But that has also been very helpful for some people with appetite, satiety, their GI tract, bowel movements, and again, helping with things that get your visceral fat and your body fat lower. So fiber is really important. And of course, oats, whole grains, nuts and seeds, fruits and vegetables. If you're tracking your diet, that all does it. I was just working with someone that has been using FitnessPal forever, and she goes, no, mine doesn't track fiber. I said, pull it up. And then I taught her where it was. So a lot of times you're just not even using the apps where you even know where some of that data is. So it's really great, and Kent gave you 3 free ones. So take advantage of things that are really helpful tools. You don't have to do it forever, but it's really helpful. And then foundation is super important. You should be able to repeat this in our sleep if you're our patient, but if you're not, we're going to make sure you just have a short reminder.
The foundation is 3 things. We call it the foundation because it applies to everybody no matter what. These are nutrients that everybody needs no matter what. So it's pretty universally applied. Omega-3s and vitamin D all show reduced cardiovascular risk, reduced Alzheimer's risk, reduced autoimmune disease risk. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You could find so much more on that.
Yeah.
I just found 3 things that they all had in common. They each have different things that they do separately as well. The Juice Plus, either the capsules or the superfoods. 30 different fruits and vegetables and berries, giving you nutrients from those that most people don't get. Raise your hand if you eat 30 different fruits, vegetables, and berries. Not me.
No.
Because that would be insane. So this is how you bridge the gap between not getting enough nutrition and getting a little bit of everything. Not only that, most of you know by now, it's the most researched nutritional product in the world. At this point, is it 48?
Yeah.
It's 48 or more peer-reviewed studies showing support for 13 areas of health, which is more than any other health product ever, and also more than any other medication. If I'm correct.
That's correct. That is
So
correct.
you really can't go wrong with these three, which is why we consider them foundational.
Yeah. And please get them from someone you know or through our office. So that way, again, you're getting the quality. And if you want to know exactly how much, then do the tests. And they're finger stick tests, so very, very easy.
Yep.
Okay. All right, great. So, key takeaways, right? I mean, there's some really important ones here. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress that you can sustain forever. Often, one other thing I just want to say is often what gets you there isn't what keeps you there. So, weight and body fat loss is different than maintenance. And that's really a whole other discussion that we can do at another time. But we want to make sure continued fat loss is a skill set you develop, right? It's who you are, an identity. That's really important. Consistency rules. I have said that forever. It is absolutely, when I've had ups and downs in my life from different stressors, metabolic stressors, injury stressors, and had weight gain, I've always been consistent and I've always been able to get back to optimal. It may take patience and practice and a while, even when you know what to do, because we're in a physical body with a lot of factors, but you can have what you want. As Kent said, fat loss is not linear. It does not happen all at once. You know, you want to have positive wording. You know, I'm doing everything right. More cardio equals more fat loss. I have a slow metabolism. Drop those. I used to say I had bad genes. I tell people, no, I have great genes. Because again, you want to have a positive outlook. You want to change my identity as I am an exerciser. I'm an athlete. I've been an athlete my whole life. So you want to be changing that identity and start working on some good statements. Plan for real life, busy schedules, social eating, weekends, travel, stress, poor sleep, and do this instead. Focus on one habit at a time, choose one variable at a time, and use data as feedback, not judgment. Because again, you may have to, you know, when someone's quit smoking, you don't say after they quit, you know, they don't quit one time, never to remind them that they could try again, right? Or if a little child is learning to walk and Kent falls down, I don't just say, well, he's never going to walk. Can you believe that? I mean, I'd be like, come on, get up, you can do it, right? You know, I remember when my friend Kathleen used to tell me my one son loved to be held a lot. And I loved it. I loved carrying him around. I had huge biceps back then. And I said, if he's still asking me to carry him around when he's 10, then I know there's a problem. But otherwise, I'm going to carry him around. You know, so again, you know, we want to encourage people to do the right things and to have that positive attitude. All right. So sometimes we have to have a little fun when we have in these serious conversations.
Yeah. And
right?
One thing I do want to add to that about consistency, you can have the greatest plan in the world all in a spreadsheet. There's one person watching who loves spreadsheets. You know who you are. You can have the greatest plan in the world, but if you can't sustain it for more than 2 weeks, then it's useless.
Yeah.
So that's where changing one thing at a time, or it doesn't have to be the best plan in the world, but if you can follow it for the longest amount of time, then it's the best plan for you.
Yeah, it's really good, really good. So we're gonna take questions. And before we do that, just one thing. I have decided to do a women's only hormone workshop. I have been spending a lot of time over the last 5 years with a lot of other experts that are pelvic floor specialists and gynecologists and so on. And there are so many things I've learned that I never get to discuss. So in February, I'm going to have a 3-hour workshop. It's for women only at this time, just because we'll be discussing a lot of very emotionally as well as personal issues. And it'll be 3 hours long for $49.95. We'll get this flyer out, and then you register right with the QR code, and you pay and everything in one spot. So it's super easy. And it's February 21st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern. So we just have this flyer, and then, of course, we'll be talking about other lectures coming up too. But I haven't done a workshop in quite a while. And I love workshops because you really get to ask questions and get to know things at a much deeper level. And it's really helpful because intimacy as well as a physical body is super important. All right. So make sure that you take action, personalize, take responsibility, test, optimize, and evaluate honestly. And it's really nice when people work together, either friends, neighbors, spouses. Super helpful when people work together. And if you have a partner or a friend that isn't willing to work together, you still can do your best. like Kent said, then you get your best plan that you can, and you just keep fine tuning, because that's what we do in life anyways. Doesn't matter what age we are, we have to keep fine tuning and doing our best. So we will take questions now. Is it all right if we leave? Because you can always cut it, right? Because you know how to cut things.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go ahead, and if it's okay with you guys, we'll keep the recording going for the questions. If they don't go well, sometimes, again, we don't want someone to go on and on something personal. Please, we don't mind if it's a personal, as long as it's, everyone can benefit from the question. We'll go ahead and leave it in recording. So Lori, go ahead. Make sure you unmute yourself.
Thank you. This was very informative. A lot of great information.
Good.
You talk about lean proteins. What about substituting like protein shakes? Because there are a lot of protein shakes out there.
Yeah, that's a good question. You want me to answer it? Heidi and I just redid, and Kent and I, we just redid our handout. We only have 4 at our office now, 4 protein shakes. There are a lot out there, and it's very scary because a lot of them are not tested. Mm-hmm. They are some of the most contaminated powders on the planet.
Yep.
Plant powders are some of the worst when they're all plant, mm-hmm. because they have glyphosate, and that is very concerning. And so we only have 4 in our office. The Complete is one of them. We have a plant power that's only plant also, and no soy for people that want still to stay vegan. We have a whey that is very broken down for people that typically, even people that have problems with lactose and casein, don't have a problem with it. And let me see. And then we have a collagen one that is ultimate, that works really well for people with digestive issues, but it is more expensive because it does have other things in there that specifically help with tissue building as well as muscle. I know that Kent redid our supplement overview. We try to do it every 5 to 6 years. He did it last year, and it goes through what to look for. And so I know, Kent, you might have I don't know if you have any other things you can add to that.
Yeah, I'm actually pulling this up on the side here.
Yeah. So, because people just go and pick things. They go like, oh, I got it at Whole Foods. It does not mean it is good for you.
So
absolutely not true.
There is if you can look up, I mean, you can do this on your own, but I have it pulled up right here on my own computer. Clean Label Project did a study. They tested 70 of the top brands, 160 different types of protein powder. And what they found was 258 different chemicals and heavy metals were tested. And they found that 47% of the products exceeded federal or state regulations for those contaminants, most of which were heavy metals.
Yep.
So it's nearly half.
Yeah.
So that's why we especially recommend the NSF certification. Which guarantees that you're getting clean stuff. Yeah.
Anything in our office is, if it doesn't have the NSF, it's made in an NSF facility. So we know that it does not have any of those things in there. And that's why I had to even take away a few other shakes, because they couldn't prove to me anymore they give me analysis that it didn't contain those things. So I just won't carry them. I will refuse to carry them. So it is really tricky. So Juice Plus has always been clean, just so you know. So that's one good thing. But they eliminated their Perform. And so that's unfortunate, So like my mom, she's going to go to where she uses Complete and Perform. She's going to use Complete, and she wants to try the Plant Power first because she's done really well with it, So, and again, so we're fine. I'm fine with using powders, but you've got to make sure they're clean. It's that important.
Other than NSF, is there any other way to check what you're taking or drinking or anything?
It takes, that's a really good question. It's really hard, Lori. Like when we bring something in, it might take me 6 months to 2 years to bring in one product, because it isn't, the company told me. I do not believe, no way. We've been to the facilities. We've actually been to the facilities where they make it, even like where they say it's in an NSF facility. Well, we want to see it. And they also can produce analysis. They won't give that to you if you're not licensed and part of, you're ordering it from them, or asking that you might be ordering it from them. So I'm sorry, I don't have another thing. That's all I can say. And we have it happen constantly. No, I just decided I got this one and it's $89 from Whole Foods. I'm like, well, you have arsenic now. You had to have changed something. Where is this coming from? I can't tell you how many times it's the protein powders. And you heard the data right there. And that's just some analyzed. Can you imagine if they analyzed all the crappy ones?
Yeah.
That are at Walmart and CVS, and I can't even imagine. Costco, not good.
Yeah. Cheaper is not better.
You have to think of it as part of your food budget. And when you look at it that way, it is not expensive. And what we did even on the flyer with the 4, we put how much it is per serving. Not one costs more than a cup of coffee. We just asked, when we were in St. Pete, we had someone get a small coffee, and John and I don't drink coffee. So we said, how much did that cost? She said, $7.95, and normally the one I get is $9.95. So again, again, no nutrition, right? 0 nutrition on top of it. And we just talked about body fat. We didn't even talk about nutrition density and the importance of all of those things too. So it's a great question, Lori. I'm sorry I don't have a better answer. It's the best we can do. You can go to our YouTube channel, and Kent redid the right supplement lecture where it goes over some of those things.
Yeah.
That's about the best we can do. There's a few organizations between the Clean Project, the NSF, and they don't analyze every single one. So to me, you have to have something that you know is clean. Yeah. So it's a really good question, Lori. Thank you for asking. Sorry, we couldn't do better than that and give you a million choices. Yeah. All right. Anyone else have a question?
Valerie?
Yes, Mary, go ahead.
This is great. Thank you very much for doing this.
You're welcome.
You mentioned weighted vest. How would one use that?
Okay.
So I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Weighted vests are really good. It was one of the things I added to my bone density handout this year, because if people can't do high intensity running, or they are a normal weight or even underweight, or have osteopenia or osteoporosis, and they can't do high impact stuff, or they love walking, then they can add a weighted vest. Now, what I recommend with a weighted vest is do not start. Some of these podcasters tell people start with 25 pounds. I started with 4. I'm up to 10. And I don't walk with a weighted vest every day. When we have like today, my car broke down in the middle of far away. So I couldn't get, so that's why Ken and I had to cut our workout short. Everyone had to come rescue me, all this stuff. But that's an example where he went to the gym, but I was due for something else where I could have done the weighted vest, taken a walk for 20 minutes, and got what I normally would from an hour walk. So the weighted vest helps you. You work harder with more impact on your bones. You have to make sure you get one that's comfortable for you, and it will hurt your shoulders at first, because we don't carry things on our traps too often. So that's why start light. It took me a whole year before I went to 10 pounds.
Really?
Some of these podcasters say 20 pounds, 25 pounds. I'm like, you want to have good form too. You don't want to be walking sloppy. You still want to stand up. You want to have good posture, but it's a really good way for people that are older, that are normal weight or underweight, that can't do high intensity, or they want a shorter workout with more weight on them. So
how long would you suggest to wear it in the course of a day?
So I don't recommend wearing it all over. I recommend what you do is 20 to 60 minutes.
20 to 60 minutes.
20 to 60 minutes. And again, you may want to start with 10. If you're not walking outside or in a gym or on a track, you could do it in home, but don't walk around with that forever, because you will start slouching. You don't want to have bad form. Okay. It's hard. I have to check myself, and I usually don't have trouble. I'm amazed how hard the weighted vest is.
Okay.
So you can use a lot of weight, but if you're doing sloppy, we don't want you injured. That has no benefit.
So just start out with like 4 pounds? Yeah,
they have vests buy a vest that, like mine is an older one that John actually had, but it has little weights that goes in it. So you can change it, and there's lots of different rucking vests is what they're typically called.
I've been seeing them on Amazon.
Yeah,
so I didn't want to buy anything until I was sure of what I was doing.
Yeah, that's great. It's really, really great for people that want to up their game. That again, time or bones or older, where again, a lot of times with knees, hips, we can't do as much jumping, hard impact stuff. Then the weighted vest is a great option, Mary.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great for muscle and great for visceral fat, but especially good for bones.
Yeah, like I work on that visceral fat.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get it off. All right. Anybody else? No other questions? Did we do that good? We're just going to say yes, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Hey, Valerie, it's Christine.
Hi,
Could
Christine.
you tell
Yeah.
me again when
Yeah.
the women's workshop is?
February 21st. That's a Saturday,
Okay.
11 a.m. to 2 Eastern. So you're in Central Time, 10 a.m.
Yeah.
to 1 p.m. for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any
Yep, I'm gonna do it.
woman 18 and older.
Okay,
just
maybe
FYI.
I'll tell Allie too. Thank
Really
you.
good
That's
for
really nice.
all women. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'll be
Thanks.
there.
Okay, Christine.
That was excellent, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Glad
Thank
you guys
you.
could be on tonight. Anybody else? And like we said, hopefully the recording went well and Kent will be able to, he's much better at me than I am. All the technology stuff. Yay. You know, it's good to have help, right? Clinically and technology. So we'll get this out in our email and you're free to pass it around. Okay. So, all right, you guys. Well, have a great night. Take care. Happy New Year.
Thank you, everybody.